Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the DE podcast. I am joined as usual by Aikenridge, and we have a special guest today. Mitchell is back as usual. Actually, not as usual, but our most common guest. But we're very excited to have him, and every single podcast that we have with him is enjoyable. So we decided to bring him back.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? It's great to be back. Great to be for you guys having me back, and hey, I'm ready to talk basketball.
Yeah.
All right, then let's talk basketball. So we'll get right into it with some news, unfortunate news for the Bulls, where Zach LaVine has injured his knee. His MRI came back positive, but there was no structural damage to his knee, and he'll be reevaluated within the next week. He actually injured himself during the game versus the Warriors on Friday, where the Warriors obviously blew the Bulls out. And I guess my question for the both of you right now is, what does this injury mean for the Bulls? Do you think that it will affect their place in the standings at number one in the East? Do players like DeMar DeRozan have to step up? And yeah.
Well, I mean, overall, the entire East is like kind of messed up. Like the Eastern Conference, like the 11th seed, and obviously the 11th seed would not even make the play-in. They're 500, the Celtics. And then in the West, it's like the Kings who are 18 and 27. So it's kind of complicated, but as of right now, I don't think they're in a bad position because I watched them last night. I mean, they didn't play super bad. Obviously, with Zach LaVine, it's something different, but I think the team is kind of used to it now because obviously probably around a month back, we had the health and safety protocols with so many players in the NBA. So I think the Bulls are kind of used to it, but something to note is that Alex Caruso is also out right now. So you have two key players, but I think with how DeMar's playing, with how Vucevic is playing, with how Lonzo is playing, I think it's not going to expect him. And especially with the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll talk about them later, obviously, but just to say with Kevin Durant's injury, I think both teams are kind of like in this situation where it's uncertain. But I think with their record, they're going to definitely stay. But with Miami Heat are definitely coming up. They're number 2 in the East actually now, but I don't think it's going to affect them in a big way.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, you were talking about DeMar DeRozan, if he could do any more. I don't think he can do any more. I think they're just going to have to find, someone off the bench to really just at least make up even half of what like LaVine could produce. But besides that, I don't think they can have their other stars step up more than they already have. I think they're already performing above and beyond. DeMar DeRozan is having an outstanding season. And although they're going to miss that 25 points per game from Zach LaVine, I think it's something that they'll be able to, just kind of roll with, especially considering it's not a major injury. They just have to bridge a small gap.
Yeah, it's not like the Bulls already kind of exceeded our expectations, at least for now. Because I remember right before the season when we filmed our podcast, Aikenridge, we kind of talked about how the Bulls would be like that 4 to 5 seed, and they'd be like, oh, maybe okay, not as good. But DeMar definitely played better than I expected. Zach LaVine played a little bit better than average. Lonzo and Vucevic especially surprised me, and as well as Alex Caruso. Mm-hmm. So I think their team is one of those teams like I kind of think about the 2019 Raptors when I kind of think about that because not because I'm a Raptors fan, just because I'm thinking about it. But, you have Kawhi, who's your captain. And, I mean, on the Bulls, there's not a particular captain, but let's just say DeMar DeRozan in this case. And then you have so many guys who are decent helping him out around that. Like for the Raptors, Siakam, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Kyle Lowry. So, you have so many guys just around him. So I think the Bulls, I mean, despite their experience, I mean, the Raptors had the same problem. They didn't have experience coming into the 2019 playoffs, except for getting blown out by LeBron every year. But I think the Bulls definitely had the potential to be that Eastern Conference Finals team. Maybe the finals. I mean, it's kind of too early to tell. I mean, but I think especially as we get later in the season, we'll definitely have like a better idea of that.
Yeah, but I would say that their finals chances, I mean, I'm kind of getting, is really determined on how healthy the Brooklyn Nets are going to be. Because if the Brooklyn Nets are not healthy, I think that the Chicago Bulls can easily go toe-to-toe with the Bucks. And there's probably like a 60% chance that they're winning that series versus the Bucks. But with the Nets, it's obviously a lot harder to judge. But Seeing as the Nets just haven't been able to be healthy for the past 2 seasons, they're still not healthy right now. I think that Chicago has actually a really good chance to go to the finals, assuming that everybody on their side is going to be okay for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and last night I was watching the Raptors Bucks game, and I kind of had this thought about the Bucks. So, I mean, obviously, last season they won the championship and everything, and Giannis got what he deserved, and so on and so forth. But I kind of noticed this because I looked at their schedule and everyone that they've played against the good teams. They play really well. I mean, obviously, we saw them destroy the Warriors, and they've been like good teams. They beat the Nets, they beat the Lakers, so on and so forth. But they've lost to like teams that aren't as good. Like they lost to the Raptors. I mean, the Raptors are one of the best in the league. No, I'm kidding. But they lost to the Raptors. They've lost to like teams that are okay. So, and they've almost lost to the Magic. But I think with the Bucks, it's all about consistency. I think last season they definitely took advantage of that and were able to be consistent, especially against against all the teams that they played going back to 2020 when they weren't consistent and they lost to Miami. So I think the whole Eastern Conference is definitely more exciting this year than any other year, to be honest with you. Because you could see second round mashups such as like the Bulls versus the Sixers. Like that's like a really good matchup, and that's only second round. Like it may seem like that's like so far, but it's only second round that you think about it. And even the first round, like you already like what now I'm thinking there are like 8, 9, 10 teams that are good, and you're gonna have 8 of them that make the playoffs. So you're gonna have 8 really good teams that make the playoffs, and you're gonna have like 2 or 3 decent teams that miss out. So, and like in conclusion, like the East is just like so powerful this year compared to other years.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I guess going back to how you were talking about the Bulls being a very balanced team, I think that on that note, we can start to talk about the Warriors, who just got another player back, that being Klay Thompson, who has now played a few games. I believe it was 3, for the first time in over 2 years since both injuring his Achilles and his ACL. In those 3 games, he's averaged 14 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, and he's had a 20-minute restriction. He's only been playing about 5 minutes per quarter. So I guess my question is just what are your thoughts on his first few games back? Is there anything unexpected that you saw from him? Just general thoughts on Klay being back in the NBA.
I just think it's such a welcome sight to see not only his energy and his production, but just what he means to the team. The chemistry that he has with those guys on the roster, from Draymond to Steph. I mean, it's just very reminiscent of like what we're used to, and I think it's just what the NBA needed. And frankly, I think now he gets to come back and be on the court with a lot of these younger guys that he hadn't had time to play with, and that's not only I think it's gonna rub off on them too. And he's probably, I bet you he's a great leader in that locker room to them. And we've seen like the rise of Jonathan Kuminga, and I think even with the difference in position, I think Klay is going to have a huge influence on him.
Yeah, I mean, like with Klay, I mean, I've had people tell me that he's going to go insane, score like 25 in his debut, or go off in the first season. And then I've had people tell me, oh, he's not going to do well just because he's coming back. But I mean, obviously in his first game back against the Cavs, who are such a good defensive team, like he definitely didn't look 100% just obviously because he's coming back. He obviously looked different. I mean, just because we haven't seen him in so long. But like I mentioned this last podcast, like the last time Klay played, Ja Morant didn't play a single game. LeBron was barely still in LA. Like it was like his first year there. Russell Westbrook was still in Oklahoma City. So like that was like a long time ago. So you definitely have to give credit for him because he's averaging, like you said, 14 points. And that may seem bad considering like how he played back in 2019, 18, 17. But that's actually good for somebody who's been out for almost 3 years with an ACL and Achilles injury.
And he's been on he's only at 20 minutes.
Yeah. So 20 minutes. So to answer your question, I mean, I think it is affecting his performance, but not in like a bad way. Like I think that if he would play more minutes, he would definitely do better. In the minutes that he's played, he's done better. And especially now with Draymond out, James Wiseman is still out. It's definitely his opportunity, but obviously you can't change it because health is obviously really important. Like we've seen it last year with the Nets, even this year with so many teams. But going to Jonathan Kuminga, like scoring 28 in Chicago, even though the Warriors were destroying him and he got more minutes and stuff like that, like his performance will save the franchise with Draymond and James Wiseman out. Like I haven't seen too much from because you've never really like all the now that I think about it, all the recent rookies that have been in the NBA are mostly guards, except for DeAndre Ayton. You had Luka, who's a guard, Ja Morant, who's a guard, Zion Williamson, he's a forward, but he's never coming back. But he's not. But it's so impressive. So the Warriors have the potential. I keep thinking about it. Even with Steph Curry coming, if you have these guys, Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, Gary Payton II, it's
Andrew Wiggins.
Exactly. Andrew Wiggins could be an all-star forward this year, like starting all-star this year. So definitely those are my thoughts on the Warriors right now.
And I think it's just sorry.
And I think just as long as they don't rush things, I like that they've got the minutes restriction, and as long as the fans don't rush it either, they shouldn't be expecting too much out of him, and they just have to trust that in however many games it's going to take that he'll be back in full force. But right now, I think the Warriors front office is handling this exactly as they should, and I think it's great to see, and there's definitely going to be good things to come, and I think it's just patience.
Yeah, definitely patience.
And I guess kind of on the note of the Warriors, we'll also talk about the other Splash brother, Steph Curry, who's right now in a huge, and when I say huge, like historic for his career, historic shooting slump. He normally is shooting usually 43, 44, 45% from three, averaging around 10, 11 attempts per game, killing the league in all aspects on offense. But in his last 5 games or so, he's only been averaging about 18 points per game, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. The Warriors are also 1-4 in those last few games, and I think he's only shooting, like, if I'm not mistaken, 32% from three, which is just terrible for Steph. I mean, for Russell Westbrook, that's like a career year, but for Steph Curry, that's like his worst shooting performance ever. So, I guess my question is, like, obviously Clay's coming back. That's going to be a big addition once he starts getting his full minutes. But are the Warriors in danger of losing their 1 seed? Well, they've already lost the 1 seed to the Suns, but are they in danger of, I guess, slipping further down to where someone like the Memphis Grizzlies starts to overtake them, and they're only about the 3 seed in the West? Or do you think that they'll be fine because their upcoming schedule is pretty easy? It's only against the Pistons, the Rockets, and the Pacers.
I mean, first of all, you can't disrespect what Russell Westbrook, because he could be listening to this podcast right now, and he might not come on, No, but
I'm not disrespecting Westbrook. I'm just saying, like, it would be a career best 3-point shooting year for him, like 32%.
It would, but
nothing but the facts there.
Yeah, exactly. But unlike Klay Thompson, where we're saying that 14 points per game is like good for him because obviously he's coming back. For Steph Curry, 18 points is not good. I mean, at the beginning of the season, we saw him averaging like 30 points per game, 29 points per game. That's dropped to like almost 25 points per game, which may not seem like a little bit, but definitely dropping 5 points per game over a course of like a couple of weeks, like that's not good. But in terms of like the Grizzlies, I mean, they're playing amazing. I mean, despite their loss to the Mavericks, like it's definitely not going to define them as a team. Honestly, if you look at the team, you have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, who came out. You have what's his name, Jaren Jackson Jr. You have a guy who played with Bronny and Sierra Canyon already, like scoring like 15 points in the NBA, which is crazy. But I think in these games against the Pistons, Rockets, Pacers, who are not the best teams, No offense, Mitchell, to the Pistons. But I think that Steph Curry definitely has the opportunity. I don't think you should take these games as like, oh, these games are going to be easy. Just take this rest. You just lost to the Bucks. You were down by 40 at one point to the Milwaukee Bucks. So you definitely cannot, rest on. You have to get that, 2-3 game winning streak, get back up. I don't think they should worry too much about the standing status right now because I think they're guaranteed top 3 with the Utah Jazz having like a 4-game losing streak right now. So it's a good opportunity for Steph Curry. So hopefully he'll get back into business. And hopefully Klay Thompson can take advantage of that, not playing the best teams in the league, taking, I guess, a little break. So, yeah.
No, I would definitely agree. I think Steph's going to come back in full force, especially against these matchups. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of Klay. Klay can pick up the slack as he's easing himself back in to a more full workload. And I got a quote here from Steph, actually, and it pretty much ties into back what I said about Klay. It's just patience. He says, in reference to his shooting stats, they're lower than I want, and that's going to happen from time to time. I'm never results-based, so the approach and what you do going into every game remains the same, and eventually it will turn around. You just can't lose confidence. And, of course, he's not going to say anything to alarm the fans, but, he's just pretty much preaching what you want to hear, and that is just you got to be confident. You got to trust in your star player, your MVP, that he's going to turn it around at some point. This is so uncharacteristic of him that I have faith that probably by the end of this next few game stretch where he's going to have some favorable matchups that he'll be at least somewhat back to form.
And I mean, going back to like Klay, I mean, I think with Steph, the whole thing is that it's extremely good that he's not like one of those players who's freaking out. I mean, we saw it when he had the whole 3-point record leading up to it. He looked kind of nervous, obviously trying to shoot so many 3-pointers a game, having these low 3-point percentages. But I mean, it's good that he's not nervous because that means he's confident. That's, obviously super important. So, it's good that he's not like blaming his teammates or anything. So, for the Warriors, the whole team chemistry thing is definitely there with, Steph, Klay, Draymond being there for so long and welcoming these new guys into their a lot of young guys, because the Warriors, if they would have had that same squad, who a lot of the guys who are from that 2017 team are still there, but Kevin Durant, like the Warriors are definitely getting into a little bit of a younger team just because of all those no players like Jonathan Kuminga, Gary Payton, Jordan Poole. So definitely, if you think about like the leaders, Steph, Klay, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins are definitely the big leaders. So, I think Steph will definitely return back to his original form. I think we saw it when he was going for that 3-point record. Like his numbers kind of went a little bit down, and then they went back up. So hopefully he'll just stay there, and it's good that he's just like chill about it,
Yeah, personally for me, I don't think there's anything to worry about. The only thing that I really would worry about is if Steph's poor shooting actually affects the team's winning. And obviously it is going to do that to some extent, but let's say they drop 2 of these next 3 games where they lose to the Pistons and Pacers, but beat the Rockets, I think then you have a right to be a little bit concerned just because of the fact that, the Warriors would definitely like to secure the 1 or 2 seed in the West. Like they do not want to be falling down there into a 4th or 5th seed, where they have to play someone like the Nuggets or I believe the Mavericks in the first round. Which I think the Warriors are better than both of those teams, but it's not like a favorable matchup, right? If the Warriors were playing the Clippers or the Lakers first round, I think they'd be perfectly happy with that. Just to the fact that those teams aren't really the caliber of the other 6 in the playoff bracket. So I think all they have to be worried about is whether or not they start to drop these next few games or not.
Yeah, and I think we can, since we're talking about the whole Western Conference, we can go to the Memphis Grizzlies right away, and we're already talking about them in a way. So we have Ja Morant Over the last 5 games, averaging, solid 20.4 points per game. The Grizzlies are 30 and 15, third in the West. So we kind of already answered the question about if they're going to catch up with the Warriors. But I think, do the Memphis Grizzlies have the potential to be a Western Conference Finals team? And also going to one of their players like Desmond Bane. I mean, what are your thoughts on him? Could he become even better than what he currently is?
I would definitely.
I don't see it happening. You do see it happening, Mitch?
I think so. I think, I like players who I just think that they're he's the hot hand right now, and I think there's no reason for for them to hold on. Sorry. I had a thought.
No, you're good. I'll let you think a little bit, but I mean, for me, it's kind of tough. I mean, I think for everybody it's tough because you've never really seen them go far in the playoffs before, except for me. I guess we can say second round with Marc Gasol, Mike Conley back when they were there. But it honestly just depends on how they can overcome the playoff pressure, I guess you can say. Because I think, in my opinion, the Grizzlies are definitely making the playoffs. I have no doubt about that. And if the Grizzlies get that second to third seed, hopefully, I think that'll happen unless they have a big losing streak somewhere in there. But I think that what Akeem said, you have a team maybe like the Mavericks, Nuggets, Lakers, who you could play, and the Grizzlies have been great against the Lakers this year. I mean, so much drama.
Destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them.
So much drama in those games with LeBron thinking he's being disrespected. But no, I think they could do it. It just depends on playoff pressure, like I said, because the playoffs, it's a whole different thing because people think the season is the season start to end. The playoffs is just the very beginning of it. The season is where you can judge your team unless you're a team who desperately wants to get in there and you're not as good. But it's a team to say, okay, this is our squad, this is our chemistry. How can we improve offensively, defensively, hopefully get the wins against the teams that aren't so good, against the good teams, see where we're different in terms of competition, athleticism, etc. And the playoffs is where you truly take the test because I can ask you right now, from the 2020 to 21 season, do you remember anything that happened during the season? Do you remember the records? Probably not, right?
No, off the top of my head.
Yeah, nobody. Even I don't remember the Raptors record from the 2019. I mean, that's not big. So everybody just remembers the playoffs. Hey, remember Damian Lillard's game winner in 2019 in the playoffs? Remember LeBron's block in 2016 in the finals? All of those memories come from the NBA playoffs. So for the Grizzlies, that's the most important part. That's where you need to play 100%. Not just Ja Morant 100%. Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Steven Adams, everybody.
Yeah, but I think the question was, could they be a potential Western Conference Finals team? And unless the Warriors drop to where they play the Suns in the second round, there's no way that there's any other team other than the Warriors or the Suns that's making the Western Conference Finals. Those teams are just way better than everybody else in the bracket. I just don't see them slipping up unless there's major injuries. So I don't think that the Grizzlies can get past either the Warriors or the Suns. So I see them as a second round team at most. They'll probably beat whoever they play in the first round, unless it's the Lakers. Out of all the teams in the lower seeds, the Lakers probably have the greatest chance of upsetting them. But the Grizzlies will probably be just a second round exit, but still a very good season for them, considering the expectations they had.
I think they're just they're a sneaky good team. They've got some very flashy players, Ja Morant, especially with the high flying dunks that he has. But a lot of the things that they do right are things that people aren't necessarily going to see, and they're really statistically on the defensive end. I mean, they're leading. I believe they're leading the league in both steals per game as a team and blocks per game. Yeah, 6.3 blocks per game and 10.1 steals per game, and they're led by Jaren Jackson, I believe, with averaging over 2 blocks per game, and DeAnthony Melton with almost 2 steals per game on the other end. So they've got a lot of great role players who are excelling at parts of the game, steals and blocks that are help what create turnovers. And the turnovers can obviously lead to points. They're very good at scoring on the other end of those turnovers. And then when they commit turnovers themselves, they're allowing the lowest amount of points per game off of those as well. So not only are they like forcing mistakes, but they're limiting their own mistakes as well. And I think that's like those mistakes, both limiting their own and capitalizing, is what's going to take them a lot farther than people think. And although it might not be to, maybe a league breaking level, as you said, maybe it's second round exit is probably what's in their future, but it's still going to be, something to capitalize on and build on.
Yeah. It's definitely a very exciting season. But one interesting thing of note is that, actually very interesting, is from this Grizzlies team, Ja Morant right now, he's second in All-Star voting for the guards in the West. And so I think we should talk a little bit about the second returns for the All-Star game. And I guess I'll go start with the West. I'll read out the West front court, which has LeBron at number 1, Jokic number 2, Andrew Wiggins at number 3, Paul George 4, Anthony Davis 5, Draymond Green 6, Carmelo Anthony, Karl-Anthony Towns after that, Rudy Gobert, DeAndre Ayton. And for the guards, we have Steph Curry, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, very high up, very interesting, Devin Booker, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, and then Anthony Edwards. Any thoughts on any of these players, where their positions are, anybody being snubbed?
I mean, it's definitely changed since the first returns. It's definitely more realistic now. I think Andrew Wiggins definitely gets the card for maybe being a starter, him or Paul George, because he's definitely surprised people this season, even although people haven't really, noticed it, talked about it. Like, he's having one of his best careers in his career. So I think it definitely deserves an all-star. But something that's interesting that I just don't notice. So 8th place in the front court, Karl-Anthony Towns, he has 851,000 votes. 4th place in the guards, Klay Thompson, has 749,000 votes. That's like 100,000 less. So definitely, like, the votes are definitely more on the front court side. But overall, in my opinion, I agree with everything. Even the guards, everyone wants Klay Thompson to have a warm welcome. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a minutes restriction in the All-Star game too. I'm not surprised about any of this, except for maybe Carmelo Anthony being at number 7. I don't think he really deserves to be there. But maybe that's one of his last years in his career, so they're going to lean more towards him.
I would have hoped to have seen Donovan Mitchell a little bit higher in voting. He is miles behind, those top 3 guys. And I didn't expect him to be within the top 3, but he's even 200,000 points behind Devin Booker there. And I think that's just, I don't want to call it disrespectful, but I think he deserves a little bit more.
Yeah, and also Andrew Wiggins is very high. He's number 3, above people like Paul George, Draymond Green, Rudy Gobert. And I think that's just too high for a player who only averages 18 points per game. I mean, obviously the Warriors are close to the top of the league, so I understand, and he's the second option behind Steph as of now. But I don't just think he deserves to also be super high. And then players like Klay Thompson, I don't even think Klay Thompson should be eligible to be voted for because he's literally played 3 games and hasn't been a contributor to the Warriors all season. And then even guys like, I think Russell Westbrook is also a bit too high. Russell Westbrook's season, it looks good on paper. You're like, wow, he's averaging a pretty high amount of points, rebounds, and assists. But from what I've seen with the Lakers, he's just been very mediocre and for league standards, and then probably bad by his own standards, just inefficiently shooting from nearly everywhere except for the corner 3. he's getting his triple doubles, but he's not doing what the Lakers wanted him to do. So I don't think Russell Westbrook should be that high either.
Yeah. I think I can go ahead and read the Eastern Conference. So we do have Kevin Durant at number 1, but Kevin Durant will probably not be playing the All-Star game. He's out for the next 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL strain. But we have Giannis at number 2, just going down the line. We have Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler. Jared Allen is still somehow up there. Bam Adebayo, Pascal Siakam, Miles Bridges, and LaMarcus Aldridge. And then for the guards, we have DeMar DeRozan, Trae Young, Zach LaVine, James Harden, LaMelo, Kyrie Irving, Derrick Rose, Fred VanVleet, Darius Garland, and Jaylen Brown. So I think I can kind of start off. I have a lot to talk about here. Fred VanVleet should definitely be higher. I'm not being biased. I think he should be higher than Derrick Rose, Kyrie Irving, and LaMelo. And LaMelo for sure. LaMelo and VanVleet, that's a big comparison, but in my opinion, I think Fred's better. For the front court, I think Jared Allen should be down. He hasn't been playing as well in his last 2 games. I mean, at the first returns, he definitely deserved it. I mean, but as of right now, Bam Adebayo is not playing in the All-Star game, and Kevin Durant isn't. So technically, Siakam could be like number 6, and Miles Bridges number 7, and LaMarcus number 8.
Bam could be back this Monday, I think.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I should take that back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's the same problem once again, where it's like all these guys, it's too much of a popularity contest, right? It's just people go too much off of who they want to see as opposed to who really deserves to get in. Like Kyrie Irving does not
get him off of there. Get him off of there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that if you're injured for more than like if you're not playing like at the beginning, like for the first like 15 games of the season, and then you start playing, I mean, at the front court, KD's not playing.
KD's been here a lot. I think if
no, I'm not complaining about KD. He should be there. But Jared Allen is there. Bam Adebayo deserves, even though he was injured for a little bit with his thumb, he still definitely deserves it. Marcus Aldridge does not. I haven't watched too much of him, so I'm not going to speak too much on that because I don't want to
I think he's just been more of a role player. I don't think he's necessarily doing anything special. I mean, if you look at the guy right above him, Miles Bridges, I think Miles Bridges has had much bigger impact for his own team, respectively. But
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I have to say that, or else like everyone's going to hate me because I'm from Charlotte. So, but for the guards, Zach LaVine is out. Most likely, I can't actually. That's too early. But let's just say for now, he's possibly out. LaMelo, Kyrie wouldn't even be able to play because Kyrie Irving can't play road games, and then Derrick
Rose play home games. He can't play home games.
All right, my bad. So he will be able to play, but Derrick Rose is injured, right?
Yeah, he's out for the season, I think. Or something.
Fred VanVleet should be higher. He should be number 4.
Garland's getting
five. Garland is definitely getting this. Even though I want VanVleet so much over him, I still think Garland definitely deserves it. I mean, he's arguably the leader of the Cavs right now. I mean, he's with Avon
Mobley. That's my fantasy team.
Yeah, I don't know who I have him, but anyways, Jaylen Brown went up there. I think he definitely deserves to be there. No, but I going at the East, I definitely agree with most of this stuff. I haven't watched too much of Jared Allen. Again, like it's not like I watch all of these teams. I mostly watch the NBA TV games and the Raptors games, so I'm not really like saying too much. I just know a lot about like the main guys like DeMar, Trae, Zach. They all deserve that. Well, Melo actually does. Like I've been fortunate to watch him in personally. His movement is so interesting. Like even when he doesn't have the ball in his hands, just like tricking his opponents, doing lots of, he's like, it's great. So I think with Kyrie and Derek, it's all good.
Yeah. And I guess, Mitch, I actually have a question for you. So I'll just give some context first. So about 2 years ago, what they did for the All-Star game is before it used to be, I believe, a 100% fan vote where the fans just picked whoever got in. But then the fans have started to just vote for like role players or meme players like Alex Caruso into the game. And they were like, we don't want Alex Caruso playing in the All-Star game over like Paul George. So they made it so that the fans only account for 50%. Then the coaches vote, they account for 25, and then the players do 25. So it was a little more balanced. And I guess my question is like, should fan voting still be like the thing that the majority factor that determines who gets into the All-Star game? Or should we start to just have like fan voting be symbolic and everything is just up to the people in the league, like maybe the media, the players, and the coaches?
Definitely. I think including the Associated Press would probably help the I guess the validity of it, really. I mean, the Pro Bowl, like just like the Pro Bowl in the NFL, and the All-Star should be an award. It shouldn't be just kind of like it's been discredited so much that even just using it in arguments is kind of like, you know, an accomplishment this players had is almost like no more. And granted, you know, you want to distinguish it in some way from the all NBA teams. So you can't necessarily have it all, you can't have it, you know, too similar in selection process to that. So I think fans should definitely be a part of it. And I think 50% right now is probably where it should be. I think the rest of the breakdown, I don't know exactly. I think you said coaches were definitely a part of that too. Maybe even the players themselves, I think, should probably have. They are. So I think where it's at now is probably where it should be. I don't think they should have any more, probably any less either. Because that's definitely helps the NBA in terms of fan just kind of like involvement. I think if you got rid of it entirely, the fans would definitely protest, and I think viewership would go down. And the All-Star game has unfortunately become more of just kind of like a show. I mean, people watch, you know, they watch it for the skills showdown, they watch it for the dunk contest, and the game is pretty much, it's become less of a game too. And I think that's part of why they vote for a lot of these flashy like players and guys who are just like, you know, kind of names that have been kind of like in the news, those quote unquote meme players. It's just that, you know, because they're not playing like tried and true basketball in these games. They're playing, you know, they're just showing off, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why the fans want these guys that are very, you know, that aren't necessarily, you know, technically sound or like, you know, pop off the stat sheet, but they're just players that they want to see.
I mean, I'll have to respectfully disagree with that just because, like, going back to like the 2020 game, like that was like one of the most competitive games where they actually tried. And then 2021, that was a little different because Team LeBron was like really stacked. So, and like Giannis, or not Giannis, what's his name? Kevin Durant was like stupid. So it was like East versus
with
West.
his picks?
Yeah. Even though he was injured, it would have been more competitive. But I think last season it was so like complicated just because of the whole COVID thing. And there were questions like, is this going to happen? Will this happen? And then it happened. And then the drafting. And then you had like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons go out with the COVID. Then you had Kevin Durant get injured. So the whole, like last season was just so confusing. I think if you wanted to ask me overall, I would definitely say that it's less than a game just for fun. Hopefully this year will be more competitive because those, like when you have a competitive game between like all the best players, that's like one of the most fun things. The 2020 was one of the best games. So
yeah, I think that's the idea behind it. That's what they want, but they don't get it because the players themselves are like, why should I even, I guess, risk possibility of injury in just a game that has really no worth in it? And then they did obviously put more worth into it by having the donations to charity. If you win a quarter, your charity gets X amount of money. If you win the whole game, you get like triple that amount. All that stuff was great, but it's never going to be to the point where it's like the NBA finals and it's like, oh, we have to be out here running down the court for every second of the game. It's extremely competitive. We're trying our 100%. It's just not going to ever be like that. But I will agree with both of you when I think I'll agree with Daniel in the sense that when it's competitive, it's much nicer.
Yeah. Like, wait, what was I going to say? I completely forgot what I was gonna say. No, but I'll just like I mean, with the whole All Star game, I'm hoping that it'll be entertaining. Um, but last, I mean, I was gonna ask like, are they still? I think with the whole All Star thing, I mean, I want to ask if you guys would agree me would agree with me on this. But the All Star game, like after that, there's a break. So I think like the players kind of like think of this as like an All Star break. Like this game is just for fun. I mean, I think the whole purpose is for fun, but
Yeah.
like the players are like, I just need a break right now from my team from basketball. Just like have some fun at the All Star game, have some fun competing at the All Star weekend, have fun, take a few days off, and then get back right into it. So I think the fans take it more than the players. I think some of the players might just think it's like a for fun game, which it is. And then the fans want more entertainment, like they want to like have fun. You know what I'm saying?
And I think you got to like maybe supplement that with some other things. You got to find that happy balance between, both satisfying the players and satisfying the fans. And I think the NBA is not going to be able to have necessarily both. And I think maybe just even throwing more things in that are outside of the game, like that skills competition, like the dunk competition that we've had for decades. But if you look at like, what the NHL does, where they keep like, what I actually like what they did is that they brought in some legends, especially legends from the city that the game is in, and had them like, compete or at least make a cameo. I feel like that would be cool. Just like maybe just involving the city a little bit more. Maybe some of the team's heritage of the city that they're in, something like that. Something to get at least the home fans involved and give them something that might not be like to help, like I said, supplement like a slightly lackluster game in terms of intensity.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great thing. But one other thing in terms of like the side events, what I think needs to happen, especially for the dunk contest, I think we need bigger names in there. Yeah, I think just that'll like we need. I know it'll never happen, but we need a LeBron in the dunk contest.
They're
We
going to have
need,
to find some ways to incentivize it more.
I mean, I think last year it was because of COVID and they just like they had the skills competition, but they kind of rushed to put these players in because obviously the whole event was like not like nobody, it was kind of like unknown to be happening. Like they had like something Simmons like from the Blazers, Obi Toppin, who nobody knew who the guy was, some reserve from the Pacers. So honestly, like I think just last year was a whole rush. I think I don't think you need like I think it would be fun if they had like 1 year where they did like a all like players for, like under 6'3" edition dunk contest where they had like Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas. Like it would have been like so fun. And Chris Paul, just like see all these like small guys just like dunking. Like I think it would be funny. But I definitely agree with Aiken Range, like having like a LeBron in there, maybe a Giannis, maybe like
Giannis would be so nice.
but then I think what the NBA is trying to do is not like include the like all the all stars in every single event. I think they want to like to have some like guys who aren't all stars, just like some guys who are okay in there. I mean, and it's not like we watch like every single game. Like last season, like Obi Toppin, like I did watch his highlights after that All Star like the dunk contest. Like he actually had some pretty good dunks, but it's kind of complicated.
Yeah,
I just
it's like you want to give like some of those players a platform, but I don't know if the All-Star game is necessarily the place to do it.
Yeah.
What they should include, what the NFL does, is a dodgeball game.
They should.
But they use basketballs instead.
Oh god. You have a couple broken noses.
Yeah, I mean, a dodgeball game would be great, or just other random activities would be nice too. Maybe they have the All-Stars play a football game.
I would love to see like a 40-yard dash. I want to see the fastest, like the NBA's version of the NFL's fastest man.
They should have they should have like a hockey competition where they have like pucks and they like shoot it at each, and then when there's like a goalie standing in there,
like a goaltending kind of thing. Like, see how many how many shots can you block by doing it illegally?
Yeah.
I think that would actually be pretty great. Like just random fun events that they kind of just pick for the year. They just get some of these guys in it, and that would actually be. It would be a great way to mix it up from year to year. And also, I think a lot of people would be very interested It could just be like a variety competition, and that they just
Maybe you
change
could have the
every.
fans vote on those.
Yeah, that's another way to just include
Because
the fans again.
do the fans vote on like the dunk contest and 3-point contest?
No, they don't.
Exactly.
No.
I think the fans should vote on the dunk and 3-point contest, and for the NBA, they should like maybe like have the starters be like not voted by the fans, but maybe have like the bench players voted by the fans. So you have at least like a lot of talent in there, as well as maybe like one like player who's been like viral in the league, maybe come in on the bench or something.
I also like what they did. I remember that one year when Dirk and what's his name? Dwayne Wade retired. They just kind of threw them in too. I mean, as long as maybe you throw in a guy like that, but they're not taking up like a regular roster spot on there.
Yeah, that was super fun because like to honor the guys who like have been in the league for so long, even though they may not be all-stars right at that moment. Like this year, maybe have actually who is retiring this year? I don't remember, but there were a couple of guys who said that they're going to retire after this year. So definitely like even Carmelo Anthony, like he's going to retire like soon probably. So that's kind of smart for them. And maybe
Yeah, and so I mean, I guess overall, just kind of to wrap this point, I think more fan interaction or or fan control. I don't know how to exactly put it with the game itself and the events surrounding it, and then just more variety and surprise in the various games will, I think, overall just make the event a lot more fun. So I think we can move on to just a few discussions about just some trades. One of them, I think, Mitch, you'll find pretty interesting. So the first one was Cam Reddish, who was part of that Duke Big Three with Zion and RJ Barrett, is going to reunite with RJ Barrett back in New York because the Hawks traded him for Kevin Knox, who was a Knicks lottery pick from a few years back, who obviously did not really pan out at all. And any thoughts on that trade?
I think that the Knicks definitely stole that because Kevin Knox wasn't like. I mean, I just think it was because he wasn't getting as many minutes in his rookie year. He actually, I don't believe he did too bad. I think he averaged like 11 points per game. But like as of right now, he isn't getting minutes. He's not playing. And Cam Reddish definitely has so much potential. Obviously, now the chemistry might be better with him with being with RJ Barrett and Duke. So, I mean, it's definitely it's great for the Knicks. I think that the Knicks definitely got a steal off that trade.
Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, let's see. I mean, they gave up Kevin Knox and a first-round pick. I keep forgetting that, like, coming from more of an NFL background, that first-round picks, like, and second-round picks are not nearly as valuable. So, I think they got a good very good value, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and as not Kevin Knox. I mean, what's his name? Cam Reddish has obviously been playing behind Trae Young and Bojan Bogdanovic and the other Hawks guards, so he hasn't really gotten many minutes. But I just remember randomly during the season and in the playoffs, he would just have really good games. So I think if the Knicks can actually give him some playing time, maybe just off the bench, a solid 20 to 25 minutes per game or something, especially with Derrick Rose out, then I think that he can really thrive, and I think he'll really show the potential that he had as a three-point shooter when he was coming out of college.
And the chemistry. You got to capitalize off that chemistry that you've now introduced into the team, like between RJ and Cam.
Yeah, definitely.
And then going on, we have Bobo, the son of the guy named Manute Bol. I think he's like one of the tallest guys to ever play. But the Nuggets Pistons trade with him voided after a failed physical. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's pretty unfortunate because that was a guy that was, as Akamarsh, I was talking with him like in school about like the potential that this kid could have. You know, he barely got any playing time. And, you know, once that trade went through, fans were, you know, going crazy on the Pistons end. It's like, oh, we're going to get this kid that, you know, we can hopefully develop along with the rest of the young guys. It would be a great addition. And, you know, he only averaged just a few minutes per game on the Nuggets. So it was very much a question mark. But for like, what was given in return, Roddy McGruder, I think in like a second round like draft selection, it was definitely, something to look forward to. And, maybe that'll go through in the future if, Bol Bol is able to pass a physical, and that's, a problem with those guys that are that big. But, it was kind of disappointing. I don't think it's like necessarily game breaking, but,
Well, a lot of people said that he had an immense amount of potential, as you just stated. So I don't think it's going to change too much, but I think it definitely, in a way, it's a loss for the Nuggets, because I think they would have loved to have just another piece of young talent. I mean, not for the Nuggets, for the Pistons. I think it's just a loss because they would have loved to have another young talent that they could probably develop along with Cade Cunningham, and then whoever they Killian Hayes and whoever they draft in the lottery next year. I think that they would have loved to just have another piece that in maybe 4 or 5 years could be playing at a all-star caliber level just based off of his potential. So
yeah,
I don't think it's
and they've been lacking, at the forward position. I mean, that being said, Trey Lyles actually has been doing very well recently over the past few games, at least statistically. He's an up and coming, I think. And Luka Garza, I think, deserves more minutes. But besides that, they're pretty spread thin. And of course, I think that's what they're going to use their lottery pick on this upcoming season, is to bolster that front court. I guess you also have Sadiq Bey in there playing at small forward. He's been doing a lot better 3-point shooting wise. But yeah, I think that would have been a nice addition to their front court that maybe could have, if he had broken out, maybe they could have directed their focus with that draft pick somewhere else. I don't think necessarily that would have happened. I think they still would have like tried for maybe a big center with that pick. But regardless, it is what it is. It's a pretty small trade on a small market team, so
Yeah. I mean, it's not gonna change the world, but
yeah,
maybe in another time it could have. You never know, right?
Yeah.
But I feel bad for Bol Bol a little bit, because now he's just gonna be stuck on the Nuggets again behind Jokic, and obviously you don't need to replace Nikola Jokic for any reason at all. So I feel bad for him, because I think he definitely deserves a chance. Because a lot of the time, what you find is young guys, they might not be looking good on one team, but then when they have a change of scenery and they're able to really get minutes and do their own thing, they tend to thrive, especially when they have a lot of potential.
I have a little bit of a long speech coming with the Raptors interested in Jakob Poto. No, we're not. I don't want that guy. Jakob Poto is averaging 11.1 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. We have my son, Preston Ochoa, got him from Miami. He's looked so good this season. He's averaging 8 points per game. And then we have my stepson, Chris Boucher, who is the backup, and he's averaging 9 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 1 assist. So they're not both bad at all, but they like the whole chemistry is so much better. Last year we had a nobody and Aaron Baines come to our team, and the chemistry was not there. I could just tell it. Preston Ochoa has a lot of chemistry. I mean, he's obviously friends with Siakam because I think they played together in Africa, in Cameroon. So they're definitely like the chemistry is there. They're all playing well. I don't think Jacopo needs to come back to us. We don't need him. I think there's been so many discussions about like Miles Turner coming to us. Like, I mean, I wouldn't mind, but then you have like Preston Ochoa who would be the backup. And then you would have Chris Boucher, who's not getting as much playing time, where now he is. And Chris Boucher definitely deserves that playing time that he has right now.
Yeah, you could probably, honestly, if you get a Miles Turner, you could probably trade off either Precious Ochoa or Chris Boucher. It's really which one do the Raptors like more and want going forward. But I think they could definitely trade one of them away, get maybe a second-round pick, or stretch it for a good role player in another position.
Yeah, and the Hornets are also a team. And the Hornets, their starting center sucks. And Mason Plumlee, I mean, he can't rebound the ball well at all. And then you have it's like you barely even have like a backup center. You have reserves and Kai Jones, who's like maybe people are saying he should get more minutes, but I think if you have Miles Turner and maybe you trade a couple of those like reserve centers in a draft pick or something like that, and try to leave Mason Plumlee there. And I honestly think Mason Plumlee could be a good backup center for Miles Turner. But no, I definitely think that, I think it would be a W for the Hornets and for the Raptors. I mean, I wouldn't mind having him on the team. It would be exciting because we haven't exactly had like a star center. I mean, we've had Marc Gasol, who was really good when he was with us. So maybe like Miles Turner can remind us of the Marc Gasol. Maybe he can have like the 3-point shooting ability, which Chris Boucher does have. Chris Boucher has that big 3-point shooting ability. So definitely exciting. But I think we can move on to our final topic of the day regarding the Brooklyn Nets. So last time we spoke, it was just before Kyrie Irving came back, and he has come back. He was averaging almost 18 points per game, 5 rebounds, and almost 4 assists per game. The Nets are 2-1 with Kyrie Irving. But now we have a problem with the Brooklyn Nets. We have Kevin Durant. He's diagnosed with an MCL sprain and out for 4 to 6 weeks, so a month, maybe even a month and a half. And definitely a serious injury. So for Kyrie Irving, do you think Kyrie Irving has impacted the Nets thus far? Will he make it better? And then also for Kevin Durant's injury, is Brooklyn doomed?
Okay, for the first point, I think Kyrie Irving will only make the Nets better. I mean, we saw what not having him did last year versus the Bucks in the playoffs, right? Game 3, I remember this distinctly. The Bucks and the Nets, they were, I think, the level or very, very close. In the early third quarter, Kyrie goes off with an injury, and then the Bucks lose that close game, and we all know what happens eventually, where they lose in 7. But I think that the reason why they lost in that 7 was because the firepower from Kyrie was just missing. That 25 points per game. He was playing so well in those first 2 games, and even going into that third game. So Kyrie being back for the Nets is just great. He's essential to their big 3, and he's going to be good, especially with Kevin Durant out now. He'll be good to make up some of that, even though it will only be on the road. But when talking about Kevin Durant's injury, I think the Nets are in a little bit of trouble. I think that they will fall in the standings once again. I remember last year, the Nets only had KD, Kyrie, and Harden for 8 games together, and they still managed to maintain, I believe, the 2nd seed, which is very impressive. But I don't know if that'll happen again this year, just because of the fact that, right, while Harden is going to be much better, Kyrie being in another lineup is going to hurt a little bit. And then also the fact that the role players aren't as good. Blake Griffin is basically out of the rotation. Marcus Aldridge is not nearly as good. Patty Mills is a bright spot, but Bruce Brown Jr. also having a slightly more down year. So I don't see them. I think they're going to be around the 4th to 3rd seed as opposed to top 2.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's bringing back obviously 2021 memories with the whole playoff thing. But it would be good if Brooklyn kind of like make it like a 500 record, not like overall record, but like while KD's gone, go like 500. I guess you know what I mean. And then KD comes back and they hopefully get back on a roll. I think they could keep it at like the 2nd or 3rd seed, but we'll just have to see.
I mean, another thing I have to ask, like, I don't think anybody could have seen this coming with the Nets just being like so unhealthy. Like, you remember when the Nets signed both Kyrie and KD? Everybody was like, oh, after KD comes back, this team is the lock for everything. And obviously they've only had 1 season together, which was last year. But in the 3 years since Kyrie and KD signed, every single season has had major injuries to any part of the team. First year, KD's out, Kyrie plays full season. Second year, KD's out in stretches, Kyrie's out in stretches, Harden's out in stretches. Now this year, Kyrie's out due to vaccine, and we don't know what's gonna. Now he's slowly coming back, if you want to call that an injury. KD is now out. Harden was out for some point, so it's just so many injuries. They're honestly, I don't know if they're just very unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to definitely see what Brooklyn will do. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to wrap up the podcast. Great podcast with Mitchell. Had to leave a little bit early, but definitely happy that he can come on. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, like the post on YouTube, subscribe. We're growing. trying to post at least one short every single day, and that's going well so far. On Spotify, make sure to follow us and download the video. We'll get the podcast on iTunes very soon. But with that
iTunes, let's go.
Yeah, we're trying. But yeah, guys, with that being said, me and Aiken will see you guys next time.